Hi. We like to occasionally do games that have been out of print for a long time, and sometimes it's interesting to take a look back at the history of the gaming systems. We did that recently, not too recently, but with Thieves World and the Free City of Haven. Today's topic is a game that was originally published in 1981 called Barbarian Prince. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that game. I just recently acquired this copy of it. It's not easy to get a copy of it anymore. It's, like I said, originally published in 1981, and nobody's done anything with it since. It came in a box, and you can see the box is still here, but it's in pretty bad shape. It also originally had a metal miniature in it, which unfortunately isn't with this copy anymore. It's very rare to find copies that have the metal miniature with them, but if you do, you're going to pay for it. I think this condition cost me roughly $100, but to get the metal miniature, it's going to cost you close to $300. Originally published by Dwarfstargames, and believe it or not, it was originally done as a Origins 81, which I think was like the 5th or 6th Origins convention game that they were selling there for the first time, and it was also the founding game behind Dwarfstargames. Dwarfstar produced a number of different games, and you can see on this advertisement some of the advertising for some of the other games like Demon Lord, Star Viking, Outpost Gamma, and so on. So they had a series of little games. These were published back in the micro game era from metagaming. So this wasn't the first one in this kind of a quality setup, the way this thing was organized, but this one was unique in several ways. First of all, it was pure fantasy, and while metagaming was doing things like with the fantasy trip at that time, this one was designed to be a solitaire playable hex crawl, which was the first time that had ever been done. And again, you can see the rest of the advertising. They also advertised their miniatures. And Heritage, who owned Dwarfstar, was in fact a miniatures company. It's what they did. The Dwarfstar game line was purely an aside to help sell some of their miniatures, and also because they had some interesting gaming topics. These Dwarfstar games are, to this day, one of the most popular small game lines ever produced. Barbarian Prince was a fairly complex game because of the nature of the hex crawl business, and we had a number of booklets and charts and tables as well as a map. Barbarian Prince's instructions read first, and it talks about how to play, and then it goes through a discussion of all the different kinds of rules that you'll need to pay attention to as you go through the game. It is kind of a fantasy role-playing thing, so we actually create characters that you deal with. And the primary character is the Barbarian Prince himself. The story behind this is that his father's died, he's being usurped, and he needs to come up with 500 gold to hire mercenaries to help retain his throne. And he's got 10 weeks to do it in. So each turn in this game is basically a day long, and you can take a daily action, and there are some other things that will happen, random events and so on and so forth, that go on through each day of the game. At the end of the game, if you don't have 500 gold coins, then guess what? You're out of business, you've lost, and you are no longer a prince. There's also a distinct possibility you can manage to get yourself killed in this adventure, too. So there's different mechanisms for travel, for being lost, and one of the more complex ones, and the ones that caused most of the trouble for players of this game, was how to cross a river. Believe it or not, the way it was phrased in these rules was fairly unclear. So there's been a lot of discussion over on Board Game Geek and Consim World and places like that over the years on how exactly that should be run, how exactly you should cross a river and what happens when. So surprisingly, like I said, that was one of the major controversies. But overall, the game's excellent. It's enjoyable. It's a great deal of fun, and it's something you can do by yourself in an evening if you wish. And or you could play it with friends, but again, it's not necessary because everything's pretty random. The decisions that you make dictate what kind of events can happen, but the decisions are basically, I'm going to go from this X to this X during the game. Anyway, so like I said, we go through all these different things. You have to obtain food. If you don't, you can suffer from starvation. There's just a whole bunch of different issues that you're confronting. Basically, you're trying to organize a little expedition to get money and support in the form of mercenaries and magic users and so forth, so that you can go home and win your throne back. So again, the rules are about 24 pages, but it is a fairly small rule booklet, so 24 pages here is probably, about 8 pages, 8.5 by 11, if that. So a little bit of artwork, and again, kind of lays out whatever is going on there. You have a whole bunch of charts and tables with this game. You'll bear with me a second. This stuff's fairly fragile since it's 40 years old. But we have like the time chart. You see each week, and then 7 days in each week. So you've got 10 weeks, so basically 70 turns. You have to track your food supply, your endurance levels, and so on. As you move through the different events, you'll discover treasure, and there's a lengthy explanation of how that works. And basically, this gives you an idea of some of the different things that you'll have to do. Remember, this was 1981, so it's pretty much a paper and pencil game, period. There's no computerization, though obviously some parts of this would probably benefit if somebody ever wanted to do that. Here's the raft travel events, traveling event references, so all the different things that can go wrong. Event references, roll for die. This game probably came with a 6-sided die when it was originally published, though I don't see it mentioned anywhere. But you'll need a 6-sided die to play the game. Probably wouldn't be bad to have 2 or 3. So again, the charts and tables there. And then we get to the events book, which is really the kind of the heart of the game. Basically, it's a random events thing that and it explains how to get from point A to point B and which paragraph you should be using. And there's charts and tables all throughout that you need to roll dice for with modifiers to determine whether or not you found somebody to join your crew, or you have to fight, or you can negotiate, or you can bribe, or whatever it is you need to do to get through the event of the day. So we have different kinds of characters that can be found. And the different terrains, by the way, dictate the nature and the frequency of events that you'll run across. So, for example, civilized farmland is probably going to be substantially less dangerous in the sheer physical point of view than out in the middle of the wilderness or woods. But on the other hand, civilized encounters can have their own kind of danger because you're dealing with people. And again, we go through, give you a feel for what the events booklet looks like here. I've played this game once, actually quite a few times back at around the 1990s, late 90s, early 2000s when I had a copy of it, but my copy disappeared years and years ago, which is a shame because, like I said, I love this game, so I finally managed to reacquire a copy of this. Again, expensive, but worth it in my opinion. So you can see if you die, game's over, start a new adventure. The nice thing about this, because it is random and your decisions dictate where you go and how things shape out, every time you play it, it's different, which means you've got a lot of replay value in this little booklet. Dwarfstar did a really good job on this game, I must say. And it's considered a classic in the fantasy role-playing genre. And you'll see favorable comments about it to this day in people's blogs and vlogs and whatnot. So, again, well worth the effort to get a copy of this. Interestingly, there were some articles published over the years about how to play different things, techniques, strategies, different ways that you could do things. Actually, this is the front part, and that's the second part over there. This one was published by Glenn Rahman, probably in Dragon magazine, if memory serves, and somebody did the trouble of copying it and cutting it out and including it with this game, which was nice. I appreciate that. Basically, it's got suggestions on how to deal with certain things and ways to solve problems, how to, for example, 6 ways to aid Calaroth, that's your Barbarian Prince's cash flow, and it includes things like robbing people, setting up a cache, whatever. So lots of different suggestions, and there were various articles that were published over the years with this kind of information in it. Excuse me. So we'll set that aside. This is the map. Originally, the map in my copy, my original copy, was not backed. It was just a paper map. Somebody went to the trouble of mounting this one, which I also appreciate very much, but this gives you a feel for the map. You start out somewhere up here in the north. I've got the map turned around, sorry. Let's move that around. The only problem, of course, with a map like this is you need to find some way to weight it down before you play. Like I said, there was a metal miniature with this game originally, which you would use to mark the location of your party, but that's gone, so you would have to come up with a counter or a coin. A penny would probably work just fine to mark where you are on the map. And over here to the side, we have a listing of the different types of terrain and features on the terrain so that you can get a feel for it, the map key. And again, you start out somewhere up here in the north, and you are moving to try and get south to the civilized country to pick up the people and gold that you need in order to accomplish your mission. There's a lot of different terrains in this map, everything from desert to forest to plains to farmland and so on and so forth. And what it really boils down to is swamps, mountains, of course. What it really boils down to is that you're going to be navigating through quite a bit of different terrain and finding adventure every step of the way as you go through this game. Overall, it was an incredibly fun game. I enjoyed it very much the times I played it, and I'm looking forward to playing it again after many years. Of interest, there is, if you go to BoardGameGeek.com and look this game up, Barbarian Prince, do a search for it, you'll find that they have a number of new files, many of which were issued in 2021 as a, quote, 40th anniversary issue of this game, which is great. It actually fixes some of the rules issues and clarifies some of the things that have come up over the last 40 years. And it's got quite positive reviews on BoardGameGeek from the people that have downloaded it. I'm thinking seriously about downloading it myself to see what's changed, because obviously it was published after my copy of this game went away years ago. And I'm thinking that it probably is, based on the comments from the users on there, that it probably adds quite a bit of value to the game as it exists. Anyway, that's Barbarian Prince. It is not published, like I said, anymore. It has not been in active print since probably 1983. So if you're looking for it, you're going to have to go to some place where you can get copies of old games. And that's going to be an exciting adventure for you when it comes to figuring out how to acquire a copy of it if you want a physical copy. Now, of course, you can download the files from BoardGameGeek. There's pretty extensive files there, and print it off. And you can find copies of the map there as well that you could print off and use that to create your own home printed copy of this game. Might be well worth doing it if you enjoy this kind of thing. Like I said, it was one of the very first hex crawls ever done, and while it's not the first solitaire game ever done, Metagaming and other companies probably did that first, this one is surprisingly elegant and well designed. The designer, alas, has passed on quite a few years ago, but he did an excellent job with this, and again, this was kind of the queen of the Dwarfstar line as far as games went, though all of their games were considered quite good. By the way, if you go online, you can find articles on this game and other games by Dwarfstar, and you can also find downloadable copies of most of the Dwarfstar games, all perfectly legal. It's not bootlegged or anything. What you can download and then print at home through home desktop publishing. So if you're interested in this game, I strongly recommend it. It's a blast to play, and the story's different each and every time, which is kind of interesting. So especially if you're by yourself out in the woods for a while. If anybody has any thoughts or questions, we'd love to hear them in the comments. And please don't forget to hit subscribe and like. And we'll see you next time.